This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Ford is going to take a big hit due to that fire at aluminum supplier Novelis's plant in New York. Production of the F-150 is expected to be disrupted for months, which analysts estimate could cost Ford $1 billion. The automaker announced that production of the F-150 Lightning will be paused next week. Ford didn't say if production will be disrupted at the other plants that make the truck, but it wouldn't be surprising to us if that happens. Ford is the biggest user of aluminum from Novelis's New York plant and is scrambling to find other sources. But this likely won't just impact Ford. Around a dozen other automakers get aluminum from Novelis, and it supplies 40% of the aluminum to the U.S. auto industry. In other Ford news, the automaker is scaling back supplies of lithium because of weaker than expected EV demand. Australian lithium producer Liontown Resources says that Ford will not be taking shipments in 2027 or 2028, and that Ford is cutting the amount of lithium that it receives in half. It's not too surprising to see Ford reduce its supply of lithium. Last week, CEO Jim Farley said he expects U.S. EV market share to also be cut in half now that the federal EV tax credit has been eliminated. EV chargers are opening in the U.S. at a record pace. According to the Department of Energy, about 780 fast chargers opened in the third quarter, and through the first 9 months of the year, the charging infrastructure grew by 19%. And while most analysts expect that EV sales will fall now that the federal tax credit is gone, executives at the charging companies aren't too concerned. They expect more chargers to open because the infrastructure is still catching up to EV adoption, and they believe EV sales could remain steady since more affordable models will soon be hitting the market. And more on that in the second half of the show. Automakers in Europe are continuing to push the EU to roll back CO2 emission targets for vehicles. Automakers must hit intermediate CO2 emission targets by 2030 before cutting emissions 100% by 2035. But the European Automobile Manufacturers Association, or ACEA, says the industry can no longer achieve the targets because EV demand is weaker than expected and the charging infrastructure is inadequate. So the association is proposing that plug-in hybrids and range-extended electrics be given a larger role in reducing the targets, and that small EVs should get a higher credit for meeting the goals. Automakers also want carbon-neutral fuels to count towards CO2 reduction, as well as incentives for decarbonizing, like using green steel.
Performance that shines, even in the rain. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Potenza tires, improved grip in wet conditions.
While it was said to have cleared the move with the IRS, GM has abruptly canceled its workaround to the expired $7,500 EV tax credit. Right before those credits were set to expire at the beginning of this month, the company was going to make down payments on EVs already at dealers, which would have allowed it to claim that $7,500, and then it was going to pass those savings along to lease customers. However, the move was even criticized by a U.S. senator who urged for the loophole to be closed. So GM says after, quote, further consideration, it's decided to not claim that tax credit money and will instead provide about $6,000 out of its own pocket for EV leases. But instead of making the offer until the end of the year like the previous deal was supposed to be, the new discount will only last until the end of this month. As you may remember, both GM and Ford were involved in this tax credit workaround, but so far, Ford has not commented on the matter. In other GM EV news, Chevy held a special reveal event for the new Bolt, and more details are pouring in about the entry-level electric. As we already knew, styling is mostly unchanged from the old model, but there are a few tweaks to the front and rear fascia, and a larger infotainment screen with GM's newest operating system is also offered. The new Bolt is going to feature a 65 kilowatt-hour LFP battery pack that the company estimates will provide up to 255 miles of range. Charging rate was increased to 150 kilowatts, and it will also feature plug-in charge and bidirectional charging capability. Power comes from the same 210 horsepower electric motor that's found in the Equinox EV. A few other highlights include a native NACS charger, a heat pump, and torsion bar rear suspension. Look for the new Bolt to start hitting dealer showrooms early next year. 2 trims will be offered at launch, LT and RS. LT starts at just under $30,000, including destination charges, while the RS trim starts at about $32,000. Another even cheaper LT version is expected to follow at just under $29,000. That will make the Bolt the cheapest EV in America, just undercutting the new Nissan Leaf, which starts at a little over $31,000, including destination charges. And speaking of new EVs, Ferrari revealed its all-new 800-volt EV chassis and the name of its very first fully electric model, the Electrica. But the company says it won't be a supercar because current battery tech can't provide the kind of performance and handling that it wants. So it will be some kind of larger 4-door vehicle. The 122 kilowatt-hour battery pack is located inside of the center of the frame structure, but Ferrari says 85% of the batteries are located at their lowest possible position to keep weight down low. It claims the center of gravity in the Electrica is 80 millimeters or 3.1 inches lower than an equivalent gas-powered model. The front and rear are fitted with e-axles that each have 2 electric motors, which will combine for nearly 1,000 horsepower and provide 0 to 60 performance of 2.5 seconds. To help control all that power is an updated version of Ferrari's 48-volt active suspension system, which it says takes ride comfort, body control, and vehicle dynamics to even greater heights. The model is expected to weigh about 2,300 kilograms, or just over 5,000 pounds, and offer more than 530 kilometers, or roughly 330 miles of range. First deliveries are expected about a year from now, with pricing around $500,000. If you haven't noticed already, we posted some videos John shot from this year's battery show, which is going on right now in Detroit. There's 2 interviews that you can watch right now, and we'll have a few more coming later today. So don't miss out on that. Also, be sure to tune in to Autoline After Hours later today. We'll be talking about some of the hottest news topics from Rivian and Tesla, as well as getting into some of the most compelling vehicles that you can buy today. You can join us live on our website or YouTube channel at 3 p.m. Eastern Time today. But that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks, and I hope to see you later.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. CSP, the composites solution partner. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering, boost your game. And thanks to the following YouTube and Patreon members.
Hi, I'm Don Hatfield from Intrepid Control Systems, and I'm presenting the wireless BMS solution from Intrepid Control Systems. Come and see us in this demo at booth 4600 at the battery show. And also Analog Devices will be there as well. We'd be happy to talk to you and help you with your solution.
At CSP, we work with OEM engineers across the country on their journeys to lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly vehicles. Learn more at thecsp.com.